This happened a couple of months ago. It feels hollow to put a catchy title on what had happened to me because it freaked me the fuck out for a while. But I think it fits in this community. I was driving home from work at 2 a.m. I'm a nurse and I live in a small city. The roads were totally deserted, and it was a freezing night. I don't live far from work, maybe a couple of miles. I'm driving down a residential street around the corner from my house and I see a man lying face down in the street. Now remember, I'm a nurse. My first thought was, great, gotta help this guy up. I was coming off a long shift and falls happen all the time. As I slowed down the car, I suddenly realized what an idiot move that was. I'm a 100-pound woman and I don't carry any weapons. I thought I should do something to help the guy, so I called 911 as I drove past him and slowed to a stop at the end of the block. While I was stopped at the light, I explained to the dispatcher that there was a man in the road who might need assistance. All of a sudden, I hear a loud bang bang from the driver's side window. I screamed and looked over. A man was pounding on my window, jiggling the handle of my locked car. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw that there was no man lying in the street. Still on the phone with 911, I screamed, "I'm so scared!" to the dispatcher and floored it through the red light. I quickly told him what had happened, and even though I was right by my house, he told me to keep driving. After a few minutes, I had calmed down and he told me to loop back around. I pulled over down the road from my house and stayed in the car. I didn't see the man anywhere, so I got off the phone with a dispatcher who told me he was sending a police car to cruise the area. As I gather up my things, I do a final scan of the area and I see the man. He is walking with two other men. I hunched way down in my car until they were far down the road, then bolted into my house. I don't know if he had ill intent, but it freaks me the hell out that he wasn't alone. Always lock your car doors and carry a mace. When I was growing up, my dad and I lived with my grandparents. My parents had me while they were teenagers, and my dad got full custody because he lived with my grandparents, and my mom was just living with random friends, going from house to house every few weeks. I was the daughter of my grandparents never had, and they doted on me. When I was 6, my grandma passed away from cancer. The story takes place about 5 months after he passed away. This was, I believe, a Saturday, and my dad was at work. My gram decided to take me to McDonald's for lunch, and like any 6-year-old, I was really excited. So we go to the McDonald's that was about 1.5 miles from our house, order our lunch, and sit down to eat at a table. At the time, we were the only ones eating inside. About 10 minutes after we sit down, a scraggly-looking man walks in, orders a meal, and sits down at the table diagonally in front of us to the left. The area we lived in was middle and upper middle class, so this guy looked pretty out of place. Graham had her back to him, but I could see him perfectly. This man was at least in his mid-50s, with really wiry, scraggy, and dirty white hair and a beard. He had on blue shorts and a white t-shirt, also kinda dirty, and sandals. It's amazing, this happened 21 years ago and I can remember it like it was yesterday. So I noticed that under the table, this man had something dark, pink, and wrinkly on his lap, and he kept glancing at me and rubbing it every few seconds. In kindergarten, we learned about stranger danger and good touch, bad touch. And we learned which parts of our body people weren't supposed to touch. It clicked in my 6-year-old head that this man was not supposed to have it out like that, nor doing what he was doing. I got really queasy and nervous. I didn't want to tell my gram right then and there because I thought the man would hurt us. If my dad had been there, I would have said something because my dad was my hero and I could take on anyone. Instead, I put my Happy Meal box in the front of my face so my view of this guy would be blocked. I had about half of my food left but lost my appetite. Graham asked me if I was full and I just nodded yes. I was and still am very petite. So not finishing a full meal was nothing new for me. She asked me if I wanted to go play in the play area before we left, but I just shook my head and quietly said I want to go home. Graham cleared our table and we left. We got home, I was still really nervous, and I felt like I was going to throw up. Graham asked me, "What's the matter, Munchkin?" her pet name for me, and and I started crying and told her about the man at the McDonald's and what I saw. My Gram didn't panic or freak out or get hysterical. She just hugged me and said, "It's alright, go into your room and play, I'll take care of it." She wiped my tears, gave me blueberry Kool-Aid burst, and told our dog Patches to go in my room with me, which she did. After I was out of earshot, Graham called the McDonald's and told him about the guy. He was still there. The manager told Graham he'd take care of it and called her back. An hour later, the manager calls back and tells Graham what they called the police, who showed up in record time and arrested the guy. When the police told the man to stand up, his frank and beans were still hanging out from his shorts. The manager also told Graham that she could bring me back for months' worth of coupons for free Happy Meals. I have another story about a weirdo that happened a few years later, and this time my dad was there, and believe me, what my dad did to him was not pretty. But that was a story for another time. Hello. This sad, terrible story took place in the year 2003, when I was a 15-year-old girl still living in my home country of Uruguay. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. My best friend at the time, same age as me, was my neighbor, who lived with her mom and grandmother, 3 houses down from mine, who had been friends since we were babies. We grew up together, went to the same school, moved in the same social circle, went on vacation together, shared clothes, CDs, food. We were basically sisters. Our families were close, etc. Her mom, early 30s at the time, was a single mom working as a secretary. They didn't have it bad. Between her salary and the grandmother's pension, they lived comfortably without any major setbacks. Her mom started seeing a foreign guy who was in the country for business. He claimed to be from Spain, but had a funny accent, as if he was originally from Italy or another non-Spanish speaking country. He was supposedly rich, despite staying in a rinky-dinky hotel. The hotel did have a pool though, lol. He would have often showed pictures of himself in a very luxurious residence. He said it was his house in Isbia. Again, sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Pictures of him driving a red sports car. Pictures of him in the front of the Eiffel Tower. Oh God, how innocent we were. And so on. After a month and a half or so of dating, my friend's mom said they were leaving the country in perhaps the next 6 to 7 months. She was in love with him, and he had promised her a life of luxury in Europe, and everything was going to be perfect. The country they were moving to, Spain. Her and her daughter, the grandma couldn't come. At least not yet. She was supposed to meet them in the future after they had settled in, but at the same time, wasn't he rich? So many red flags. This is where I come in. Since I was such good friends with Martiza, the guy had told Martiza's mom to bring me along for vacation, that it would be good for Martiza, make the transitions easier, etc. I was, of course, thrilled. A month in Europe with my best friend who was moving away, and the idea of going to see her every summer and stay at her stepfather's mansion, it was a dream. My parents, of course, weren't so thrilled at first, but as they got to know him, they liked him, and eventually he won them over too. Eventually, I got a little weekend job as a waitress at my uncle's restaurant to help my parents with a plane ticket and other costs. We got my passport, we were ready to go. As the months went by, it became evident that I wasn't going to be able to go. The money I had saved wasn't enough. It didn't even cover half the ticket, and my parents couldn't come up with the money for the rest of the trip. A week or so before they left, the guy came to my house and talked to my parents. He offered to pay for my plane ticket. My parents politely declined. I was fuming. I swore I would never talk to my parents again. I didn't come out of my room for days. Eventually, I got over it, and when it was time to go to the airport to say goodbye to them, I did. We cried, we hugged, we promised each other we would meet up next summer. By then, I would already have the money saved. They left. We never heard a word from them again. The days went by and nothing. I remember the grandmother, the pain on her face, the nights she went on without sleeping, home alone with her daughter and granddaughter, who were supposed to call her as soon as they arrived in Spain. And yet, they never did. Eventually, they were reported as missing. Surprisingly enough, the guy had given out his real name and last name the whole time. So after the cops got involved, turns out he had this huge record in Spain and Italy and had been jailed for drugs, prostitution, kidnap, extortion, and God knows what else. The police told their family that they were most likely sold in a human trafficking ring, that this was very common, and sadly, there were too many cases like it. There was nothing to do but wait. Last time anyone saw them or had any register of them was at the airport in Seville, when they had arrived. Nothing else. It breaks my heart even to this day, and to think if my parents had said yes, I wouldn't be here today. Sends chills down my spine. Sometimes I look Martiza up on Facebook in hopes that I'll find her. Maybe she regained back her life and her freedom, but nothing ever shows up. Their grandma died in 2013 too, sadly without ever seeing or hearing about her daughter and granddaughter again. Hey guys, Lady Horror here. Sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. I've been busy with school and family and all that stuff. But I will be doing a lot of uploading and some special Halloween stories. I will be uploading them on Halloween. See you guys later. Thanks for watching.